שלום ובוקר טוב לאנשי בית הלוחם ותומכי תומכות בית הלוחם כאן, מנהל בית הספר, המורים. I speak in English. I'm here on behalf of בית הלוחם, so thanks to בית הלוחם supporters here, בית הלוחם representatives, the school principals, the teachers, and especially you, the young kids, the students. I was in your age, 1967, 17 years old, a year before being drafted to the IDF to serve the mandatory service. I still remember the days between our Independence Day, that year, 67, to the beginning of the Six-Day War on the 5th of June. The feeling in Israel was like, could we survive another Arab invasion offensive, Arab coalition trying to annihilate, to destroy the state of Israel? Tiny country, by all means, demography, geography, but highly motivated Israel Defense Forces, tzahal. In a way, we were frustrated that year because we were 17 years old, we couldn't participate in the war, we were educated to take responsibility, so we did what we had and could do as students at that time to support the civil defense, to dig shelters in the sand near Haifa, Kiryat Chaim, the place that I was born and grew up. In 6 days, what a relief. Not anymore a tiny country, situating on the Jordan River. Not anymore a threat from the Golanites, from the Syrian side, not allowing our farmers to cultivate the land down in the Hula, around the Kinneret. And from the Egyptian side, going till the Suez Canal, the Sinai Peninsula, and the unification of Jerusalem. I still remember myself going to trip in Jerusalem, watching the Jordanian soldiers, the Jordanian snipers along the wall. We couldn't go to the Wailing Wall. We couldn't be in any place in the eastern side of the city. And after 6 days, what a relief. At that time, I had to decide what will be my military service. The feeling in Israel was like it should have been the last war. We defeated the Arabs. They should understand that they can't defeat us. So it might be the last war. I decided to be drafted to the military as paratrooper, but with the idea to go to the Negev at the end of my military service to establish a new kibbutz, my kibbutz, in the Arava Valley, according to Ben-Gurion, our first prime minister vision, to settle the desert, the Negev. My mandatory service, we were engaged in the attrition war, but I didn't think yet that security should have been the first priority. I thought about settling the Negev as the highest priority. So I released from the army after 3 years, at the end of 71, to become a kibbutz member. After less than 2 years, we were surprised and shocked from, again, Arab offensive, Egyptian, Syrian, Yom Kippur War of 73. At that time, during the war, I said to myself, if I survive the war, I might go back to the military service, to be commissioned as an officer, in order, first of all, to replace those who fell in the operations, many officers, or were wounded. And that's what I did after the war. We were the first brigade, the paratroopers brigade, to cross the Suez Canal to fight in the city of Suez. But immediately after the war, I went to the officers' course to be commissioned to become platoon leader in a paratroopers battalion. Again, I didn't think about long military service. But I retired in 2005 as a Lieutenant General, the Chief of General Staff of the Israel Defense Forces. My point is that in any personal juncture in which I had to make my personal decision, what next, I didn't think just about myself. I thought about the state of Israel, the Jewish people, deserving an independent Jewish state. But in order to have it, we have to take responsibility, not just by defending the state, by taking responsibility in education in our country, in the economy, in social affairs, on any issue. And that's why was the reason that after my retirement from the military, I decided to go to politics and to become the defense minister. I would like to tell you about our well-known secret. What does it mean, well-known secret? Yes, we are still a tiny country, geographically, demographically. When it comes to quantities, our enemies around us are more. There are more soldiers, not talking about terrorists, rockets, missiles, even aircraft, tanks, whatever. But they are not able to defeat us because of our secret. And our secret is our hearts and our minds. Spirit, Jewish spirit, and knowledge. This is our secret. That's why we have strong military might, the Israel Defense Forces. That's why we have what we call startup nation, to be in the state of the art on technology. Our prosperous economy is based on high tech, on knowledge, but part of it is spirit. What does it mean? It means that each of us, Israelis as well Jewish in the diaspora, should take responsibility for the future of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. Each of us. And this is our source of strength. Nowadays, Israel does face what we call a conventional type threat. There is no armed forces around us which are able to defeat the IDF. But they decided to go to different type of threats. Whether it is the nuclear, which they tried, so far they failed, Iraq, Syria, Iran is still a challenge for the future, but we claim by one way or another, this military nuclear project in Iran should be stopped. But for meanwhile, they target our own civilians. By terror attack, when I served as the Chief of General Staff, we dealt with what they called Al-Aqsa Intifada. And we went to defensive shield operation to annihilate the terror infrastructure everywhere. Rockets, missiles, terror rockets and missiles, the same concept. Not to be engaged with the IDF, but to hit deliberately the Israeli civilians. They sought to believe that the Israelis might give up the idea of a Jewish state. They thought about shelter. Yes, it is shelter for us. But the Israeli public, the Israeli society didn't surrender. Neither in the time of what they call Al-Aqsa Intifada, the suicide bombing attacks, rockets launched by Hezbollah from Lebanon or from Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad from Gaza. The Israeli society demonstrated resilience, endurance, and not surrendering. This is again a source of strength, spirit, and knowledge. Knowledge in developing and manufacturing Iron Dome, David Sling, all kind of defensive measures enjoying intelligence superiority, operational superiority against it is hearts and mind, spirit and knowledge. But in the end, the spirit of the Jewish people, understanding the importance of the Jewish state, making people to be committed to the Jewish state, and to take responsibility in Israel as in the diaspora for the future of the Jewish people and the Jewish state. This is a key element in which each of us have to make his own decision. How can he take responsibility? We just witnessed the tragic terror attacks, the murder of Jews in Pittsburgh, in the United States. Anti-Semitism is still active. Unfortunately, I can't see it disappearing. Whether it is a jealousy, as we, the Jewish, are so successful, whether it was because of other reasons, it might be neo-Nazi ideology, it might be radical Islam, it might be whatever. In this case, we should be unified. Unification is a critical element for our future, in Israel as in the diaspora. Part of our activities, and that's why I am here, is supporting our wounded soldiers. It is part of how can we enhance our strengths regarding the spirit of the people. We have here Noam Gershoni, who was wounded in a battle. I also was injured in a battle in Lebanon, 85. The whole idea of Bet HaLochem is to allow soldiers who are injured or wounded in the military rehabilitation, medical, physical, mental, to go back to become productive, to enjoy dignity, well-being. This is the idea of Bet HaLochem. I claim that this is one of our national security assets to strengthen the ability of the Israeli society to stand. This is about the wounded soldiers. This is about the fallen soldiers and their families. How to strengthen them, not to surrender, to go on with their life, with all the pain, with all the vacuum created because of the tragic event. And Bet HaLochem in Israel, dealing with about 50,000 wounded soldiers, giving them all the options, the facilities for rehabilitation, to bring them back to normal life as they can, according to their disabilities. This is the idea. And that's why we are here, to call you to take responsibility, to support Bet HaLochem, as part of our strengths, as part of our future as a Jewish state in our tough neighborhood, the Middle East. Celebrating 70 years of independence. For me, it seems like a miracle. I was born 2 years after the creation of the state, 1950. My mother arrived to the land of Israel at the end of 1946 as a Holocaust survivor. She met my father, who came to the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, 1925. He was 15 years old when my grandparents from my father's side decided to leave everything in Ukraine after losing one of their sons, my uncle. He was murdered at the age of 18 because he was Jewish. We were talking about anti-Semitism. Another son was arrested because of Zionist activities. My grandparents were Chovevei Zion, as we call it. So we left everything over there, and they went to Zion, to to Jerusalem. My grandparents from my mother's side perished in the Holocaust in 1942. I'm sure that any Jewish, they prayed next year in big Jerusalem. I'm sure that they didn't even imagine that 60 years later, the Jewish people will have a Jewish state, independent Jewish state. For sure, they did imagine that the grandson will have the privilege to serve the country as a paratrooper, as a chief general staff, or as defense minister. That makes me optimistic regarding the future of our country. But the future of our country is dependent on the readiness of each of us to take responsibility for the future of our country. As long as we spend on educating the young generation here in Mexico City, as well as in the other places in diaspora, not talking about Israel, that each of us should take responsibility to understand it is not so obvious that we have a Jewish independent state for 70 years. After 2,000 years in exile, it is not so obvious. And in order to keep the Jewish state forever, each of us should take responsibility. I urge you to take responsibility. Am Israel Chai.